Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Maybe are we just giving folks a few minutes to get settled in here? If a decision to make it pop. Yeah, so I'll bring some budget now. Yeah, anything. Okay, I guess something like Hey, Kobe, is this better?
Yeah, we can hear you okay.
Perfect. Okay. All right. How is everybody doing today? So, my name is Carlos Matutes. I am the New Mexico State Director for Green Latinos, and we're here to talk about civic engagement and how government works and how you can plug in. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. I'm a political scientist, also run the state program in New Mexico. We do a lot of work not only with community-based organizations, but we also do a lot of advocacy work with both the state government and the federal government. Uh, so just wanted to let you know a little bit about what you're going to leave here today with. So the main thing is just to give everybody a better idea of how government works and how you can work with government at the local, state, and federal level. Knowledge of how laws are made, where your voices as community members can plug in, an understanding of some key federal agencies that shape our daily lives, practical tools to build your community power and protect your rights, and then confidence that your voice and story matter because they do. Now, I'd like to start out with a little story myself. So a couple of years ago, I was working with a group of kids, fourth graders, from a small northern New Mexico town called Peñascos. This is an almost exclusively Latina and indigenous community there in Peñascos. These kids were at the state capitol promoting legislation to declare a day of forest acknowledgement. This is an area that, if you're familiar with the big Hermit's Creek Calf Canyon fire 4 years ago, this entire part of the national forest either was burned or was threatened to be burned. This is where these kids played. This is where their families hunted and fished. Incredibly important, not only for the community, but culturally as well. This is a group of like kids who, who look like you and me. They go to the state capitol, and there's all these adults, mostly white adults, in suit and ties, very intimidating for fourth graders. So I pulled the group aside and I said, look, the reason that these people are here is for you. They work for you and your families and your communities. So don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to come in here with something that's important to you. It's important to your family. It's important to your community, because that's the reason that these folks are here. It was pretty incredible, the shift that these kids had once they realized this. They went from being very quiet, staring at the floor, staring at their shoes, not wanting to address legislators directly, to walking into offices and putting their leave behinds, saying who they were, who their school was, and what they wanted. The difference was incredible, and that difference is a sense of political efficacy. That means that what you say and what you do matters in the politics of your city, of your state, and of the federal government. Kobe, if we could go to the next slide. So here's just some of the players. And we won't go through all of this because you're all probably very familiar with who we're talking to. And when we talk about advocacy, we're really looking at two groups: elected officials and appointed officials. Elected officials obviously are the people on your ballot, the people that you voted for or maybe didn't vote for, and their staff. And then appointed officials are going to be people who work for the city or the county, people who work for the state, people who work for the federal government. And we'll talk a little bit about how we work with each of these, levels. But essentially, it's all going to be relatively similar. If you are working for a 501c3, you really want to focus a little bit more on advocating for issues. If you do have a C4, you can work on specific legislation. We'll talk about that later in this series. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so this is the basic concept, and this is how we idealize what we do with our laws in our country, in our state, and in our cities. There's an idea. Maybe it's from voters, maybe it's from corporations, maybe it's from politicians themselves, but that idea addresses a need. That idea gets proposed usually either in city council, state legislature, or in federal legislature. And that goes into committee where these ideas, these bills are debated. Then it gets voted on, first out of each committee, and then onto the floor in both the House and the Senate at the state and federal level, and city council at the local level. And then finally, the executive, whether that's the mayor, whether that is a governor, whether that's the president, can sign it into law. Now, your voice as community members matters at every single step of this way. Next slide. So the agencies are the ones who actually take those laws and enforce them, they put them into action. And we'll talk a little bit about the federal level. Some of the agencies that you're probably going to be working with on a fairly regular basis that address the work that we do with environmental justice. Obviously, the Environmental Protection Agency, they're supposed to regulate the air and the water to make sure that private companies, that municipalities are not polluting your air and your water and your soil. The next is the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They handle food safety, farming, school lunches, and fairly recently urban forestry, which is something that Green Latinos has worked with directly. Uh, Department of Homeland Security, unfortunately, is something that we're having to deal with as Latinos on a daily basis. And of course, ICE is under Department of Homeland Security. They handle immigration enforcement. Uh, we wish that we weren't having to work with DHS, but it's just the reality of this current administration that DHS is going to be in our lives. So what we can do with each of these agencies is we can go to them and we can comment at hearings. For example, a lot of us over this past week were commenting on the Environmental Protection Agency's rollbacks of the endangerment findings, which essentially says that pollution and climate change are a danger to human beings in this country. It's a lot of rollbacks. The one that a few of us commented on this week was on clean vehicle standards. So it's up to each of us to make sure that our voices are heard at public comment periods during hearings. This is something that we can challenge rulings. We can challenge the way that those rulings are upheld, but we can demand accountability. There is a little bit of a limit to what we can expect out of our agencies, especially under an administration like what we have, but it is up to us to make sure that we're having our voices heard whenever possible. We have the next slide. So we can be silent. We can be the way that my parents were, and a lot of our parents were, where they had just come to this country. They didn't want to rock the boat. And so they decided not to go to city council meetings. They decided not to have their voices heard. They might vote in the presidential elections, but a lot of times they didn't participate. So what we can do is we can go from that silence into our collective power. And this is where, as the Latinidad, we actually have some real juice here. We are a growing percentage of the population. Our state, New Mexico, we are what's considered a majority minority state. So we have more people of color than white people in our state. We have the largest Latino population per capita in the entire country, second largest indigenous population per capita in the entire country. We have a say in things. So the most important thing for me is knowledge. Get to know your representatives, get to know your city councilors, get to know your county commissioners, get to know your state representatives and senators, and get to know your federal senators and representatives. If there's something that's important to you, for a lot of us, it is both environmentalism and social justice. Make sure that you're following bills. If you work for a community-based organization, you probably have a network that lets you know what's coming up on the docket at every level of government. If you're a private citizen, get in touch with Green Latinos. Make sure that you're getting our newsletters, getting our mailings. Sign up with Sierra Club, sign up with League of Conservation Voters, especially if there's a CHISPA chapter in your state. They do amazing work at getting information about policies and legislation that is impacting our communities. Organizing is so incredibly important. Make sure that your neighbors are involved. Make sure they know what's going on. Make sure that you're active in your school boards. Make sure that other parents understand what's happening with their kids and with their communities. And even if you're a religious person, churches have been absolutely instrumental in ensuring civil rights and are right now, especially Latina-run churches, are starting to realize that the environmental impacts of capitalism is impacting their church members. So really important to organize at all of these levels. Storytelling, super important. My friend Patricia, who works in our Colorado program, has amazing personal stories about her and her family's journey and the way that oil and gas has been impacting her family and her community. if you have these stories, if you have neighbors with these stories, make sure that these stories are shared. It is so important that we know what each other are going through. Building that empathy is super, super important. Um, Testimony, if you can attend either hearings at the federal level, state level, or even city council meetings, it's important to have your voice heard literally. Get up on that podium and let people know what's going on in your communities. Let them know what's important to you. And then finally, let's protect and expand our rights together. If one person's rights are being infringed upon, all of our rights are being infringed upon. I cannot stress this enough. Nobody's free until we're all free. Next slide. So this is where political efficacy comes in. Believe that your actions count. The belief that your vote is important. The belief that your voice in those chambers is incredibly important. This is something that those kids in the roundhouse of the New Mexico state legislature didn't ever understand because nobody taught them that your voice matters. Uh, Understand our history, whether it's tenant unions, youth climate strikes, the Chicano movement, the Black Power movement, the gay rights movement. All of these movements historically have moved the needle forward. So one of my favorite sayings from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is the arc of history is long and it bends towards justice. We need to make sure that we understand where we came from so that we can understand where we're going. Change comes from persistent everyday action. Sometimes we get big wins. That's great. Those are fantastic days. But the
Yeah, well,
reality is,
it's early. It's early. It's only 3:30.
I know, but
thanks. The reality of this is that the real change happens every single day. It comes from emailing your city councilors. It comes from, you know, making a call to your U.S. House rep. These everyday small movements add up and they really make a difference. And then this is something that I can't emphasize enough either. Silence benefits power. Our voices shift power to our communities. Okay, next slide. So it's super important for us to protect nuestra comunidades. Keep in mind that the elected officials work for us. There is a big trend in this country, basically creating these heroes or these superstars out of politicians. The thing that I like to say is when you vote, you're not proposing to somebody for marriage. You're just picking to see what movie you're going to go see. Every single politician is supposed to work for the people of this country. Let's not forget that they are not above us. They work for us. Government decisions touch our daily lives. It's very, very easy to pay attention to the big headlines at the national level, especially over the last 7 months. The chaos at the federal government level has dominated so many headlines. And while it's important to pay attention there, it's maybe even more important to pay attention to what's happening at the local level, within your school board, within your city councils, within your county commissioners boards. Pay attention to what's happening during your state legislation. Every state has a different legislative session. Some go year round, like California. In New Mexico, we have a very, very short session, 30 days, 1 year, next year, 60 days. Texas goes every 2 years. So it's really important to sort of look into how your state legislature is structured, find out when those sessions are happening, and that will help you know when you can go and speak up. Advocacy is a responsibility and a right. No matter your documentation status, no matter your citizenship status, we can advocate for what's important to our communities and to our families. We have that right in this country. That being said, for folks with difficult documentation statuses, it's also really important that you keep you and your family safe. lean on organizations like Green Latinos, lean on organizations like League Conservation Voters. You have allies, you have friends, you have people who really care about our communities, who they have the privilege of documentation status that puts them at lower risk. So, this is where we exercise that right. We have that responsibility, but please, on the next point is we get this change, this justice, this resilience together. Juntos podemos. Un pueblo unido nunca está dividido. It is so important that we work together, that a unified community will never be divided. Next slide. So if you'd like, this is a really great article that talks about how a tenant organization really has changed the way that politics is practiced. It's a great example. If you have a chance, we can send you a link to this. Please feel free to email us. And then I'd love to see what questions we have, what topics of discussion, and going back to the storytelling. I would love to hear if anybody has stories that they would like to share about their political efficacy. Patricia.
Yeah, Carlos, I had a question for you. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having conversations or at least sending material to the electeds that we might not always talk to or agree with?
Absolutely. And so I'm glad that Patricia brought this up because she is the absolute queen of reaching across that aisle and making sure. So she lives in Weld County, Colorado, which has traditionally been a very conservative area. And if she didn't work with people who may not agree with her ideologically, nothing would get done. So for me, I think that the biggest thing here is finding the commonalities, finding the humanity. It's really easy to see people with a different ideological viewpoint as the enemy. And while certain policies may really affect our communities, our families, our individuals, it's important to try to find those connection points. And whether that is wording some mailers, wording some leave behind documents that are less inflammatory so that we can hopefully change some minds. And even if you're not going to turn, say, a no vote into a yes vote, what can happen, and this is kind of the sneakier side of politics, sometimes what you need is for that no vote to be a not vote. So if you can change somebody's mind enough so that they're not passionately against something that you're advocating for, sometimes they just choose not to show up for the vote that day. Really important. Again, if we're unified, if we're together, we can get more done. And even if that's moving the needle a little bit for folks on the opposite side of the aisle, it is incredibly important. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Patricia. Any other questions? Or again, I would love to hear anybody's stories about how they have interacted with with elected officials or appointed officials at whatever level of government they've been active in. Okay, are we feeling a little sleepy today? Is it a little bit of a siesta time? All right, Patricia.
I can tell one of my many stories.
I would love this, y'all. Patricia has so many amazing stories. This is going to be good.
Yeah, so this was from the first fly-in I ever did with Green Latinos as the Colorado fossil fuel just transition advocate. And one of the federal programs that I was working on was trying to delay or stop the expansion of a pipeline coming from the Canadian tar sands. All the way to Commerce City, which is currently one of the most polluted zip codes, if not the most polluted zip code in the United States, owned by Suncor, one of the worst companies ever. I digress. And so that day, like Carlos said, I am represented by a very Republican state representative named Ken Buck. And Ken Buck was also the district attorney for the county, Weld County, in 2006. He worked with DHS and ICE, and they broke into my aunt's tax and translation services building, stole a bunch of information from undocumented people, and raided the JBS plant here in town, which is a meat packing facility, on December 12th. That was, at the time, the largest immigration raid in American history. So unfortunately, like happens in a lot of spaces, this person failed upward until he became a US state representative. And so having that background coming into the conversation for me was very difficult because I was in middle school when that happened, and I had friends whose parents did not come home. And when I spoke to the representative after being denied or not receiving a response for a request for a meeting, we happened to walk by, and the importance of saying no or to at least sending information is so important because I asked about how the representative was going to repair the relationship with the Latino community, what kind of outreach was being done to our community. Mind you, CD4 at the time, 40% Latino, maybe more. And so all of these things are super duper important. And I told the woman that I spoke to that, the Latino community, despite this being 6 years ago, we have not forgotten what happened in our community. And she said that no one has ever requested Spanish services or things in Spanish, and that no one has ever come to them and raised concerns about the representative's reputation in his community. So we were able to leave behind information. We left behind the LCJF, the Latino Climate Justice Framework. We were able to leave information about the pipeline, about the different issues happening in Colorado, because that's the thing. Another thing they do is they'll just say, we can't help you because this is not a federal issue, it's a state issue. So, having those expectations and knowing what you can leave behind is so important. And, since then we have continued dialogue with, after the redistricting, CD8, Gabe Evans, the one that hosted or what did he do? He sponsored all these bills, right, that we're dealing with now in CD8. And, we still maintain a line of conversation because at the end of the day, we're still going to ask them to justify their votes. We're still going to ask them, what they're going to do or how did they prioritize our communities when, they've made the commitments in the past. So I feel like just having that open line of conversation is just so important.
Thank you, Patricia. That it is incredibly vital what you did, and those leave behinds are really really important. One of the things that Patricia brings up is accountability, and having good quality information that is as unbiased as realistic. If you have good data that you can leave behind, that's a really good a tool for accountability. Because then don't say no. You can let no. You do know because I left you the info about that. It really helps hold the feet to the fire. That goes for people on both sides of the political aisle. They're saying not all skin folk are kinfolk. That goes along party lines as well. Anybody else have anything that they'd love to share? Like either I did a really good job or a really bad job here. Um, yeah, I do want to ask folks if you're on this Zoom call right now, we do have a series going on. We would love it if you made sure and showed up at each of these advocacy training series Zoom meetings. It's good information. It's a great place to connect with folks who maybe are not geographically close to you, but who you can work with on federal stuff and get some good ideas of how they're working at the state and local level as well. As far as things that Patricia mentioned, the Latino climate justice framework, we have a second version that was debuted last year. It has just a wealth of knowledge and information. If you have the ability to print some of those out, it's fantastic. Let us know. We can get you get you the files for that. If you're here in New Mexico, I am currently printing a run of these. I'll be dropping these off at some legislators' offices, both friendly to our cause and not so friendly. It's really, really important that we try to reach across and give as much information as we can to everybody. Yeah, we have kind of burned through a bunch of information. Jennifer.
Gracias, Carlos. That was really great information. I had a question. So my name is Jennifer Adams. I am the Environmental Justice Program Director at Nuestra Casa. We're based in the Bay Area, specifically serving the community of East Palo Alto. And we have a large group of community members that we have educated through our EJ Academy. A lot of them are advocates in the community. Our main focuses are drinking water, and with the effects now of groundwater rise and potential contaminations being remobilized. You had such great information, and just something was like not repeating the wheel. Do you have these like recorded, like just as the segment along with the information that maybe we could share back out to our alumni of EJ folks in our community, and maybe like, use it in a way to continue to inspire them and give them more information? Because it was very amazing way that you presented, and I don't know if I could do the same.
So thank you so much. And I guarantee that you could do the same, if not better. All of these trainings are recorded. All of our slide decks will be available. You can always reach out to one of our staffers. I'm always happy to share any information that I have. And we can drop my email address in the chat. But it's basically carlosmatutes@greenlatinos.org. And yeah, I definitely appreciate the compliments, and I'm so excited that I hear from community members around the country that are activating getting their community members together, that are showing up in force, especially for nuestra tierra, nuestra agua, nuestra aire. So thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you, Carlos.
Anybody else have any questions or anything that they'd like to share? Okay, well, I guess we can give y'all back a little bit of time. I'm going to go ahead and put, again, my email contact in the chat. Oh, it's already there. Thank you, Patricia. So yeah, I really encourage all of y'all to talk to each other, talk to your communities. I cannot emphasize this enough. None of us can do this alone. None of us are able to really change things alone. It takes each of us doing the work to move forward, but we just are able to do so much if we can do it together. There's a saying that, of course, we all love, that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. Muchísimas gracias. Really, really appreciate all of you showing up. Appreciate all the work that you're all doing. Please keep attending and prepare for our virtual advocacy week. Your senators and House representatives are going to be in district in September and in October. Those of us in New Mexico, Alejandra, I see you, Ana. We will definitely be in touch because we're going to be showing up. We're going to be showing up in numbers, and we're going to be making our voices heard. And yeah, well, I'll give y'all back a chunk of time. Otra vez, muchísimas gracias. Thank you all so much, and take care of each other, and make some good trouble out there.